Hi, I'm Madelyn Tandry of DIY Salvation. The following presentation, titled TROM 101, The 8 Classes of Overwhelm, is a direct follow-up to the one simply entitled TROM 101. In the previous installment, we talked about postulates and overwhelms. We touched on only two kinds of overwhelms, forced to know and preventing from being known. In our example of the man ignoring the beautiful woman, he is enforcing his must-not-know postulate on her by ignoring her, preventing her from being known. Then she turns around and successfully seduces him, enforcing her must-be-known postulate on him, and he is forced to know. Those are two ways a being can overwhelm another, and today we are going to revisit those and introduce you to the other 6. Now, these 8 classes of overwhelm appear on a tool we use in TROM called the Postulate Failure Cycle Chart. If you aren't looking at one now, don't worry, you can study it later. What I cover will help you understand it better anyway, but I will warn you that most people will find the chart confusing at first glance. An overwhelm occurs when you force another to agree with your postulate, or you are forced to agree with theirs. Remember, a postulate is an intention. It could also be called a purpose or goal. A good way to remember its definition is that when you postulate something, you intend it. Though there are many possible postulates, there are 4 that are fundamental to existence. These are called the basic goals package, and they are to know, to be known, to not know, to not be known. When I have a conversation with you, I want to be known to you and to know you. You want to be known to me and to know me. When I want your attention and you give it to me, or in other words, I want to be known and for you to know me, and you do, our postulates are in agreement. This we call complementary postulates. When postulates complement each other, there is no game. But let's say I want you to know me, and you ignore me, or not know me. Then our postulates are in conflict. Now there's a problem. Problems are the building blocks of games. I could just decide to leave you alone, and that would end the game with you not knowing me, and my no longer postulating to be known to you. This would be a complementary postulate situation, just like if I were making myself known to you, and you decided to know me. But let's say I insist on getting your attention. I speak more loudly or walk up closer to you. I get your attention. I've overwhelmed you. I am forcing you to know me. You are now forced to know me. Then you get away from me, this time successfully, and prevent me from knowing you. I'm prevented from knowing. I follow suit and ignore you, preventing you from being known. This offends you, so you now yell in my face about it, forcing me to know you. I am forced to know. This is the cycle of a compulsive gain between you and me, each one of us opposing the postulate of the other, and each of us resorting to overwhelming the other to get their way, rather than one of us voluntarily changing their postulate to accommodate the other. Overwhelms one commits are called overts. When one is overwhelmed, they receive a motivator. It's called a motivator because it motivates one to commit an overt. You prevent me from being known, so I am now motivated to commit the overt of preventing you from knowing me. Think on this for a moment. A child sent to his room enough times will eventually just spend all his time alone in his room and not want to come out. The child is prevented from being known so often that now he prevents others from knowing him. A woman who plays hard to get becomes more interested in a man once he gives up pursuing her. She starts out by not knowing that man, and once he withdraws from her, or in other words, makes himself not known, she wants to know him. That woman, who is now prevented from knowing, will now force him to be known. She's going to call that guy and make him speak to her. Not every child or every woman acts this way, but there are events in one's life where one gets so overwhelmed by others' postulates that they make that postulate their own and level it against others, or once they get their way, they change their postulate. This is the postulate failure cycle. One being overwhelms another into agreeing with their postulate, causing the other person to fail in the postulate they were holding that opposed it. Knowledge of the 8 classes of overwhelm and the postulate failure cycle gives us insight into many of life's activities. A boxer, for example, wants his fist to be known to his opponent, and his opponent wants to not know that fist. That boxer overwhelms his opponent and forces him to know his fist. When you give up on trying to call someone who won't return your messages, you are prevented from knowing them. Their postulate of not being known to you overwhelms you. You could also say they want to not know you, and you are prevented from being known. If you call the police on a noisy neighbor and the police quiet them down, you are preventing them from being known. You are also forcing them to know the police. All 8 of these overwhelms occur in every person's life. See if you can name which one it is the next time you see one. And don't forget, one event can involve more than one of each of the 8 classes of overwhelm, and the class of overwhelm depends on who is giving and who is receiving. Now, what does all this have to do with TROM therapy? Earlier, we spoke about time breaking, which is the simultaneous viewing of the past and present. On TROM level 2, you view past objects at the same time as objects in your current environment, and you compare the two. On TROM level 3, you become simultaneously aware of a past incident and your present surroundings. Time breaking, whether on objects, people, or events, when done properly according to the instructions in Dennis Stevens' book, The Resolution of Mind, a Games Manual, will reduce the upsets related to the objects, people, and events. But there will come a time on level 3 when no matter what you try to time break, it just fades back into the past right away. At that point, you will need to stimulate your mind in order to find further material to handle in session. That's when you use the postulate failure cycle chart. On TROM level 4, only the overwhelms are addressed. When one starts out forcing another to know and ends up being forced to know, at that point, every postulate he's made has failed. That's why it's called the postulate failure cycle. It's a series of overwhelms, starting with one overwhelming another and ending in being utterly overwhelmed himself. On TROM level 4, the overwhelms are addressed in the reverse order that they occurred in life. You got yourself into this mess by going from A to B to C. So you're going to get out of it by starting at C and going to B and arriving at A, where you started. In future installments of the TROM 101 series, we'll explore the rest of the postulate failure cycle chart to broaden your understanding to what underlies the upsets in life and how these are addressed on TROM level 5. Lastly, we have a page on our site that corresponds to this audio presentation, as well as a video on this YouTube channel if you'd like a visual on this. Also, I recommend watching the videos Time Breaking, The Illusion of Time Explained, and How Advanced Level TROM Handles Inner Conflicts and Past Overwhelms. And visit bettertrom.com for the very best possible learning experience. We are DIY Salvation. Don't just use your mind, resolve it.